My guest on my right, Ed Sarluca, familiar name to the sports program here at Times of the East, assistant football coach and head baseball coach. And on my left is Bob Scott, and of course Jim Ruhnke down here with us. And of course Bob Scott, we mentioned during the telecast, Bob's an official, and Bob and I went to Central Regional together. Bob was a quarterback and a baseball player over at Central Regional, but he didn't play basketball. I was wondering how you got to be an official in basketball.
Well, the winter months are cold around here, and I thought that I'd like to take up an activity, and I was always a fan of the game. And, of course, I was never good enough to play at the high school level, so I just paid attention, and 17 years later, I'm working basketball games.
Well, I know you used to pal around with one of the all-time great basketball players at Central, Joe Pinelli, and I know Joe's dad and you were very close. You're involved in business together, so that might have had a little effect because I know Joe's dad's an official, too, and I think you guys used to work together.
We both cadetted together. We both took the test together, and he worked basketball for about 5 or 6 years, then he gave it up to retire.
Now, we saw you down at the Round Ball tournament. I think you had a championship game, didn't you?
Yes, I had the championship game at Ocean County Round Ball and also the Monmouth County Jubilee Tournament.
I want to ask you what your thoughts are on the high school basketball. After we saw that tournament, we thought maybe St. Joe's was going to be invincible. Then Jim Ruhnke's old club, Southern, goes and knocks them off.
Well, on any given day, I don't care how invincible a team is, you can see an underdog come up and upset them. As was the case when Southern Regional knocked off St. Joe's, and as was the case when CBA knocked off Neptune 2 years ago. Just a team that was 5 guys were psyched, they're ready to do the job, and they go out and they have a game plan, and they stick to the game plan, and they win the ball game.
Okay, I might mention, Bob, I wonder how many games you're going to be able to get in this year, because I'm not going to ask you, you don't want me to ask you about your son who's playing tonight, but obviously you're here as a fan tonight, not as an official, and are you just going to work games whenever you can around your son's schedule and try to see all the Times of East games as a fan first?
What I did was I turned 1 game a week. I turned back. I said I wouldn't work a ball game, but our assigner was kind enough to say, okay, I'll give you an afternoon varsity game. So like this afternoon, I did a Pinelands Regional at 4 o'clock, and I'm able to make the night's game. Okay.
I'm going to let Ed talk a little about the Scott family, because Ed had the pleasure of coaching Bob Scott Jr. and Joe Scott as well on the football team. We're seeing Joe here tonight, a fine sophomore guard. Bob Jr.'s hurt with the injury from the football season we talked about in the pregame, but maybe you could comment about his sons here in the athletic program at Times of the East. I'm sure Central Regional hated to see him get away since his dad played at Central.
Right. Well, Bobby played safety for us for 2 years and has done an outstanding job. Unfortunately, like you said before in the pregame, he broke his leg in that Brick Memorial game, and it cost him his basketball season. I hope it doesn't cost him his baseball season also, because I'm looking forward to having him out for baseball. And Joey quarterbacked our sophomore and JV teams this year, a little bit on the JV, and we're looking for Joey to possibly step in next year and challenge for the starting quarterback job on the varsity.
Okay. Bob, are officials in plentiful supply in high school basketball? I know in wrestling they're hurting for officials, but how about basketball? I imagine it's pretty tough to work your way up.
There are approximately 190 basketball officials, and there are not enough basketball officials for all the levels of the games. However, there are more than enough for the varsity level. It seems to work out to where there's only approximately a pool of about 60 officials that work the varsity level games. But of course, they always have a difficult time getting the girls basketball officials, because the men do them also, and the 7th, 8th grade and the elementary school games.
Since Jim Ruhnke has a son in the East program, I know Jim's son played in a JV game here tonight. You got to know Bob pretty well. You have any questions you want to ask him?
I thought maybe we'd get the story from the side of an official out here. We hear from the stands, they hear from the fans, they hear from me when I was coaching. I know all the time, and you know, everybody says, well, the official did this and the official did that out there. Do you think that the official does play a part or has a strong influence on the outcome of basketball games?
Probably more so than any other sport. However, I don't believe for one moment that any official knowingly believes that he has an outcome on it. What he does out there is he reacts impulsively to something he sees. He doesn't even have time to know whether or not the infraction's going against this club or that club. And he just reacts.
Right. I don't think officials, I'm not saying goes for one team or the other, but I do think officials in basketball have, a big effect on the outcome of a game, more so than any other sport, because the game is officiated much differently by different individuals. I think you'll back me up on that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, you can see the same thing in college basketball. If you watch out the Midwest ball games, that's a much more physical game, whereas when they come back east to play, the complaint of the Midwest college teams is we don't get away with anything back here. It's a close ball game called here. Out west, it's a very physical game.
It's like playing at Southern or Townsend or North, right?
Absolutely.
One last question. What is the toughest thing or the toughest call or situation in basketball today?
Oh, geez, I'd have to say that probably the most misunderstood call and probably the one that has the most complaints is the block charge call. I mean, we had a couple out here tonight, and especially in the JV game, where, you know, you could sit there and say, oh, I had it that way, and it went the other way. And I personally find it easy to make the call because I use one set of guidelines, but sometimes I watch the game and I say, well, those guidelines must not be employed.
Well, thank you for that insight into the charge and block. And I might say that Bobby is one of the best officials ashore. He has, it's proven by the games that he's given by the Shore Conference. He's had the Shore Conference finals the last couple of years. He, as he plugged himself, he had the Jubilee final. He has the Southern Round Ball final. And you don't get that unless you're really a fine official. Ken?
Thanks, Jim. Bob, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Of course, he's going to be watching his son for 2 more years. Joey is only a sophomore. Now, Ed, let's talk about baseball. When are you guys going to be leaving for Florida in spring training for the Raiders?
Oh, I wish we were leaving next week, but unfortunately all we're going to is Cherry Hill to go to a baseball clinic.
Yeah, that's the Jack Hawkins Clinic.
Right.
Jack, the former football coach at Manasquan and coached baseball at Princeton University. And I understand he's got Earl Weaver coming to the clinic.
Earl Weaver is going to throw his hat around a few times.
That should be interesting. He's quite a guy to listen to. How about looking ahead to baseball this year? Last year, I guess, was the year of the Golden Eagle of Central. Al Kunzman's team took the New Shore Conference tournament, the Ocean County tournament. They were #1 in the ratings. How about your club? Now, you're like every other coach at East. You've got everybody back this year. You should be tough.
All right, well, we're looking forward to the season, but I'll tell you, everybody in A-South is going to be tough this year, right? The Golden Eagles have just about everybody back. With Musselman and Leiter and Katchmeyer, and South has their ace back, Brunhauser, you see him out here tonight, and North has their 2 top pitchers back, and Lakewood has a top pitcher back, so everybody's going to be tough, and it's going to be a great league this year like it always is.
You mentioned Scott. You hope he comes back from the injury. Who are some of the other names for East Baseball?
Well, our 2 top pitchers, Bobby Petty and Chris Schiavo, will be back, and our best all-around MVP last year was Mark Robbins, and we're looking for another great year out of him. Darren Rover at short, Jack Santos at third, and Jimmy McIntyre, Vinny Garrity, some of the other names. Jimmy Verderosa, who's playing ball out here tonight, also is one of our better ball players.
Okay, Ed, good luck in baseball, and congratulations on another good job of football coaching.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ed Sarluca. And that's it. We'll be back with the second half after this.